Hi, third and fifth graders. Today this lesson is for both of you. We will be drawing something that is our opinion today. And both of your grades, you guys are focusing on writing your opinion and giving facts or reasons and information for your point of view. So I thought we would both do this today. We will be drawing what, in your opinion, is the best classroom you can imagine. So, of course, yours might be different than mine, but I'll show you the basics of how I'm going to start, and then I'll let you change things if they're different than mine, or you can do some of the same things if you also think that they would be the best things to have in a classroom. So, my classroom, I'm still going to make it like a room in a school, but you could think outside the box on that if you wanted. So to get started, now I'm using a pen, and so you'll need a piece of paper and something to write with. With my pen, I'm going to be making some lines that are going to go through things. So I'll draw the outline of the room, and then I might draw things in front. So if you are using a pencil, you might go back and erase some of these lines after. But if not, that's okay. You can do it like me. Go this way. Okay, so to start our room, we're going to draw a horizontal line across the middle of our page here. Get this going here. Okay. Like this, and I'm actually going to make mine a little bit longer. Okay, so that is where the floor meets the back wall. And so then we're going to do two straight lines, vertical lines up from the ends of that horizontal line. There's our back wall. And then our from each corner of that rectangle we made, we're going to go straight down, a straight line angled down to the bottom corner of our paper on both sides. It doesn't have to be exact, but roughly goes down to that corner. Okay, and so now we see we have our other two walls and our floor, and then this is the wall where we are coming into the room. So if you want to set yours up in a room like this, and then here's the part where from here on, if you like something that I'm doing, you can add it, or if you have a different idea, you can add yours. And you can look at mine as a reference for how I'm drawing a few things, if that helps. So I thought about some things that I would want in my ideal classroom if I just could do anything, and I thought I would like a big window here in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and drew one of the reasons why I think a big window would be cool if it was nice and quiet outside the window. So you could leave it open and not have things that were distracting, but just nature outside, is that it would bring a lot of light, and also you could have a windowsill there, and you could grow plants on the windowsill. Okay, so go across here. So this is what I'm doing for my window, and the window panes here. And then I'm going to draw some plants on that, sitting on that shelf. So this is what I was talking about, how with my pen, I have to just draw right over those lines. But if you had a pencil, you could go back and erase the line inside these cans. That's just one example. There might be some places like that where you want to erase. So just doing some little plants in here. Maybe a little cactus. Okay, so there's one thing. And the reason why I'm doing lots of details is because like I mentioned in your standards, it talks about giving reasons and information. So we want to show what exactly would be in the room, and then if we were to describe it to someone, we could tell them why that's so important that we have those things. So then I'm going to add a couch here on the side. So my couch is going to sit up against the wall and then come out like this. So I'm going to have it slanting back. So hopefully you can see how I'm matching the couch to the way that the room looks slanted to us, and then I'm drawing some cushions here and just kind of experimenting with it as I go. So here's my couch, and then I'd like to have some pillows on my couch. This is another spot where if I had a pencil, I would go back and erase inside these shapes that I just drew over, so it looks like the couch is on top of the, or in front of the wall. So if you have that, you can do that. All right, and then by my couch, I would like to have a lamp. So I'll do, because the other thing I'd like right by it is a bookshelf. And my bookshelf would also have a computer station at it. So again, see how I'm having to draw over my other lines and you can see through them. So this is another spot. If you have a pencil, you could erase that part. But if not, it's okay. It'll work out with pen. So draw my shelf and my books. Once we color it and go back and add more detail, then you won't notice as much if the lines are going through there. So here's some books, and here is, I'll do a little laptop here. And maybe a printer. Those are some things I'd like in my classroom so that I could look things up, or students could look things up. And then this is where I want the lamp, right in between here. So I'm going to have it coming up. And I'll just have one of these lamps that curls down like this. Maybe it has one on both sides. This is kind of the library part of the classroom. And then up here in the front, I thought it would be nice to have a little kitchen counter area so that if you had snacks, you have a place to prepare those, and you could have a sink there. So I'll put that. I'll just show part of it here. We have some counter there and maybe some snacks. Okay, and then on the other side, I would like to have a rug and kind of a little play area or a building area. I think that even, you're never too old to play with, building supplies, or there's all kinds of those out there, just because those help you be creative. So I would put a little shelf here, and again I'm angling it up because like my line could angle a little more that way. And then this is where I would keep the boxes of whether it was Legos or Connects or whatever types of things I had, maybe even clay, things that you could sculpt. Okay, so there's my boxes, and then here's my rug. So this would be an area to be on the ground, to pull these out and play with those on the ground. I'll do an example of a box that's pulled out here. And maybe it has some pieces in it. Okay, and then I'll do, I think I'll do a design on my rug that's like swirling in to just show what kind of rug it is. Okay, and then up here, well, let's finish this side. So I really like music. I like to play the piano, and I'm learning how to play the guitar. So I would put a keyboard here, or a piano. Let's see, I'll draw my piano. I'm trying to kind of line everything up on this outside line, and then I build it up from there. So if I get these, then you can experiment with how this works for you when you're drawing this. See if there's, if you're able to make it look like it's lined up on the side of the room. And then we'll put some keys here. Piano is just the instrument that I grew up learning, but I also think it's a fun one because it's easy to play around with. Anyone could just sit down and play around with it even if they hadn't had lessons. So that's why I'm choosing a piano. And then also I'll put a guitar here on this side, just showing a little bit here. So there's my guitar too, leaning up behind the piano. And I better put a bench to sit on. Okay. Right, there's my bench. Okay, so lastly, of course, I need an art table, or it can be used for writing or anything that we needed. So I would put, I kind of like the idea of having a big circle table here and putting chairs around it and the supplies in the middle. So when I draw these chairs, we'll go ahead and put those all the way around. And I'm less concerned today on our drawing, I'm less concerned with having this be in correct perspective, and I'm more concerned with you just putting your ideas down on paper. So that's why I'm not spending too much time figuring out all the angles and making sure everything's exactly right, because I don't want you to get too caught up in that today. It's more of just sketching out your ideas. And so if we've got some mixed perspectives, that's okay. I know I do on my paper here, but I've got my ideas down. Okay, so my chair's here, and then I'll just put some supplies in the middle. So maybe I'll have a cup here with, we'll do some paint brushes. Maybe we'll do some pencils here. Paper. And one thing I would love is to have flowers on the table. I just think it's always nice to have flowers. And just anytime. Just add some beauty to the table. So, do that. Fresh flowers on the table. Okay. These are some things that I'd want in my classroom, and I think, I'd probably want some art on the walls as well, and I would love to have it be a student gallery like the way we have in our classroom. So I'll go ahead and just draw that with some, I like the way we have it with our clothespins in some places. In some schools we have clothespins, other schools we do magnets on a whiteboard or tape up our art on the whiteboard. So here's a gallery of art, and then I probably have some work over here as well. Here's some other just pieces of inspiration. On the walls. Okay, so if I kept doing this, I'd probably think of more and more things. But my room's pretty full, so I'm gonna sign my name, and when you're done, you can sign your name on yours in the bottom right corner, and then I'll make a copy so I can get ready to show you what I'll do for color today. And take your time. If you need more time to add your own ideas to your room, great. So today I'll be using paint, and I have a regular watercolor set here that I'll use. It has a brush, and I've got some water in a cup, and a paint shirt that I can put on, or I can use to just wipe my brush off if I need to. Doesn't matter to me if you use watercolor for this or not. You can use whatever you want. I'll just use this so you can see a different medium today. But whatever you decide to do is great. So if you're using watercolor, let's remember a couple tips. So we always get our brush wet, and that's what activates the paint. And there's just a balance of how much water and how much paint you would use. So if you're using, if you want a darker color, then you would use more paint. If you want a lighter color, use more water. If your brush starts to dry out and it just stops painting, then you need more water. And sometimes you need more paint too if it has too much water and not enough paint. So it's a balance. So just keep going back and forth if you're using paint, between the paint and the water. And we always have the rule at school of no double dipping, so it should be the same for you at your house if you're using paints. You want to keep your colors separate, and so you can mix them on your paper, or if you have a little tray like this, then you can do that. So I'm starting with my window and my sky out there, Now, another thing to remember with paints is that you want to use the tip of your brush if you are doing a small area. And see how I'm holding it down close like a pencil? I'm doing that so I can control the paint, so I'm only touching the tip of the brush. I'm not laying it all the way down. That's because I have this small area I want to get painted. If I am doing a bigger area, like when I do the walls and I have to cover a lot of space, then I'll lay my brush down and I'll be a little looser with it and I'll just go over the whole thing. So, but it just depends if you're using something, if you're doing a small area or a big area. And then also, one thing we want to avoid is getting too much water because it could drip. So I'm trying to be careful when I hold mine up so that it doesn't drip while it's still drying. But if it does, that's okay. It can just be part of your picture. So doing some different colors here on the window, on the plants. Okay, and then I've got a tiny little brown. Alright, so here we are. So I've talked a lot about paint, but it doesn't matter if you want to use crayon today, marker, or if you're just using pen or pencil, then just go ahead and use that. That's great. We'll just make sure that you use, you can shade. So just make sure you're adding some detail, whether it's with color or just with adding patterns to the things in your room or shading them so some are light and some are dark. Anything like that will work. And hopefully you can see now when so when we're adding color, that helps with the parts where, like my couch, where I had to draw it right on top of the line where the wall was. I'll show you. So I see how now that I've added color, it's not as obvious that the line of the wall was going right through the couch. And then now, since I didn't paint that little corner of the couch blue, it looks like it's part of the bookshelf now. So adding color kind of helps correct that. But again, if you had an eraser, you could have gone back and erased those too, and that would also take care of it. So if you are using paint and you want to make a lighter color like gray, you would just add water to the black. So that's how you'd make it a little bit lighter. And so this is just fun. You can just think about what colors you'd want in your classroom if you could design it all yourself. And I'd love to see these. I'm sure other students would like to see them as well. Whatever you think. It'd be fun to share these on the Google Classroom. Okay, let's see. And who knows, maybe you'll be designing a classroom someday. So this could actually become a reality, whatever you design. So you feel free to try out all your ideas here. books. I'm going to do all my books different colors. So I'll just start choosing some random books to paint in, and then I'll go back and do other colors kind of randomly. I always like colorful bookshelves. One thing that that artists do a lot is they use a lot of reference material. So books, computers, artists get a lot of ideas from the things they look at. And so I think that reference material is important for any kind of classroom. Any kind of dream classroom like this that we're making, even if it's not an art classroom. It's always nice to have a way to look up things that other people have done. Sometimes that's even just from your teacher. Your teacher gives you the reference material, but as a teacher, I look up a lot of things to help me make art or plan lessons. So we don't always see all the reference material, but you know that artists are always looking for inspiration and ideas. Then it kind of feeds into your brain and then it comes out through your imagination. So it all gets combined. All right, my sink area. Do a red counter here. So as I'm going along, I'm leaving some things white. I like white furniture, but I'm gonna go back and make some color for my walls so that the white will stand out. So usually we're trying to fill in everything, right? We're not trying to leave tons of white space. So be creative and see if you can find some colors that can help you fill in if you have a lot of white space. Or if you're just using pencil, same thing. Fill it in with gray or a pattern, stripes or plaid or polka dots, just anything to help you show that you're intentional about what you're doing. Not just leaving it white because you didn't want to work on it. Okay, let's see here. We'll do some orange flowers. Something that's nice about painting with watercolor is that you can, like for my flowers here, sometimes you can let the paint go outside the lines of if that's kind of the effect you want to create. So since we've already drawn it with pen, that got us the shape. And now we can kind of just use the paint to add to that. So some parts you might want to keep it in the lines, and some parts you might not. You might want to let it flow outside of the lines. Like for those flowers, I just felt like that would help it feel more full. So that's something you can play around with paint. And so something I forgot to put on here is a whiteboard. Maybe that would be on this wall in the front. I'm kind of picturing that you could do any subject in this room. So you could even do math. We have all these, again, these boxes back here with building things that can be manipulative for, learning. So we've got all kinds of options. You could bring things in for science and do science on the table. Look things up about social studies. So we've got lots of options for this classroom. Another thing that would be really cool, I think, in a classroom would be a stage, like a little place to kind of perform. you could act out, things you're learning about or things you read about, or you could use it to present, whether you're presenting your art or presenting a paper you wrote, kind of giving a speech or teaching a part of a lesson. So that'd be fun. That'd be a fun thing to add. Maybe you can add that in yours if you want. I bet some of you would think about adding like if you had a big enough space, like a gym, like a basketball court, or maybe like a soccer goal or something, that where you could incorporate PE activities into your classroom. So be creative. You get to think about this. Maybe part of your classroom is outside. You can show that. Games, whatever you think would help you learn. Okay, back at my table here. Go over to the little game section. Those. And remember, you can, you're kind of in your own classroom right now at home, right? So you can design that as well. Maybe you've already thought about a way to set up your space so that it helps you learn, a way to create like a focus area. Maybe a place where you go in your home to take breaks from your schoolwork. And then if you have some music that you're using to help you to just concentrate or to relax for breaks in between, things like that. It's kind of cool that you have a chance to set that up for yourself right now a little bit, so you can take some ideas of what you think a classroom should be like and apply it right now at home. Have kind of like a rainbow rug. If you need any ideas for what things could look like, you could look through, if you have some magazines, even like a home magazine, a home decorating magazine, that could give you some ideas for your classroom. I'm making mine very colorful. I don't know. I wonder if it might be too bright and too colorful if you're trying to study, but I don't know. It might be kind of fun. We'll see how it turns out. That's the great thing about art, right? This is our chance to just experiment with things and see them and imagine them. Find out what you think. Okay, so there's my rug. And then the piano. Okay, just gonna do a regular brown piano here. This is what the piano looks like at my parents' house when I was growing up. here's an example of how you can mix colors if you're painting. So you can mix it on the page. So I did yellow first, and then I'm going to take some orange and just paint it right on top of the yellow, and it will mix the two together. Alright, so I want a color for my floor. Alright, well, one thing that I love is I love the color of like a hardwood floor, just like a plain hardwood floor. So maybe I'll do that for my classroom. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to mix some yellow and orange for that. So get my yellow down first because it's lighter. I'm going to start with my lighter color. And this is where you don't have to hold the brush so stiffly. You can let it be a little more loose in your hand and just cover up bigger spaces more quickly. I'm still being careful with my brush to keep it like this instead of pushing it all the way down so it goes like a mop every direction. I still want it to be kind of going the same, the bristles are going the same way, if that makes sense. We just don't want to get the bristles of our brushes all tangled up and twisted up because it just makes it so they don't last as long, and then it's hard to get them back to their normal shape, especially if they dry like that. So try to keep your brushes' bristles going the same way, nice, smooth way. Okay, so as I'm adding the orange on top, I'm going to add some more water as well so that it blends. If I get too much water on here on this paper, then it might rip because this paper is just regular copy paper. Same thing if you're using like a notebook paper. If it gets too wet, it might rip. So just have to know that and try not to put too much water on, but we can use quite a bit of water without having it rip. And then that way things will blend. If you have thicker paper at home like cardstock or actual watercolor paper, then you can use that and your paper will be less likely to rip and it will not wave as much. This is thinner paper, so it starts to kind of wave when it gets wet. Alright, so my color, I'm just going to add a little bit of brown to that because I want to show that it's like a wood floor. Doing like some brown stripes. So this is how, again, like if you're just using pencil or something, you can do things like this, stripes, to show what kind of material you're choosing and why. I'm choosing the wooden floor because it's easy to clean, maybe a little easier than carpet in my mind, and because I like how it looks. It's very simple, and I like it when classrooms have just a simplicity because you're going to be creating in the space. So you don't need it to be too, in my opinion, you don't need it to be too fancy because that's what the classroom is all about, is creating things in the classroom. You know, and especially especially true for art. So sometimes I like to start with a bare walls, bare space, and then add as we create art or other things. We can add it to the walls. All right, so speaking of the walls, I just got mine wet. So now I chose to do just like a light color for my walls. So what I'm doing for that is I got it wet. This is called a wash, where you get the paper wet first with just water, and then you paint on top. And I'm doing little spots on mine, and I'm going to try to get those wet so they'll blend. Might have to try that again. Some of them dried pretty fast. But you can kind of see how there's just little spots on the walls. So what I'm trying to show with that is not necessarily that they're actual like polka dots on the wall, but I'm just trying to get a look of like maybe light and shadow on the walls, how they're kind of changing color. They're not all just one solid color because of this big window in the room. Hopefully there's a lot of light coming in, and it's maybe casting some different shadows and light around the room. So I chose blue for that because it's kind of a color that we sometimes associate with white. So I have my white furniture that's really bright white, but I also wanted to have lighter walls. So I chose this kind of light blue and white idea for the walls. It looks gray right now because it's wet. So that's just because the paper's see-through and you can see the board behind it. So when it dries, it should just be kind of a light blue. And I'm going to do the same thing with just a little pink too to warm it up. So I'm going to just do a few dots of pink here and there, which is red mixed with water. All right, and then I have my art on the walls that I need to just kind of add some detail to. Since it's far away from the viewer, I don't need to do too much detail. I can just do a few things here and there, and it will show what it is. I mean, it won't show what it is exactly, but it will give an idea that, oh, these are paintings. So here's an example of what I'm doing. I'm just starting to show like some grass or the top of a tree on some of these paintings, just to give the impression that if you looked closer, you'd find out what these were. That's a technique that artists use sometimes, is if something's in the background and it's not really the main part of the picture, then they don't always put as much detail onto that part, just so that your eye doesn't focus too much on that. They just kind of blur it a little bit. And that's what happens when you look at something far away. We've talked about that before, probably, like with the mountains. The farther away they go, the less detail you see on them, and it looks a little more blurry, and that's natural for our eyes. That's how we see. All right. So I'm going to move mine over so I can show you the finished product. Just has to dry, but this is what mine looks like. Okay, so I hope you had fun making your classroom, what you think is the best classroom in the world, how it would look, and make sure you're thinking about why, putting lots of details, and then I'd love to see it if you have a chance to share it online. Thank you so much for drawing and painting or whatever coloring you did today with me, and have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye.